I was thinking about the whole foster care system, and we're in the process of trying to get our license so we can foster here in this area. But just a thought occurred to me, like, man, like the kid we bring in could be the next Jim Daly. Like, it's just a weird thought, just like, man, you never know who God's calling you to minister to and what the trajectory of that person's life is going to be. I was talking about the very issue of foster parenting and adoption in Korea when I was there a couple of weeks ago, because in their culture, it's shameful to take someone that's not from your bloodline. And we were trying to explain to them there's a greater bloodline that we're under now. And do you understand that we need to? A lot of times as believers, what we do is we assume negligence unless the Lord gives us a direct word from him. In other words, it's like, well, I'm not going to take on a foster kid unless the Lord speaks to me and wakes me up in the middle of the night and says, you must take a foster kid. And my whole point is, well, why don't you assume action? Because God already told us to care for the widows and the orphans. Shouldn't we just assume I'm going to take in some kids unless I hear a voice from the Lord saying, I didn't mean that for you? I mean, doesn't that make a lot more sense, But as believers, we just assume negligence. We're just going, I'm not really going to do anything unless the Lord speaks to me. I'm saying that's so backwards if you believe this is the word of God. It's like, let's just start obeying these commands. And I need a voice from the Lord telling Francis, enough, you're caring for too many widows now. Like, that's the type of voice we should be looking for, and to assume action. But so often, it's just what we do in church. We're used to hearing messages, and we want something more. It's really got to hit me. As he was speaking, I was thinking about, this week I was reading in the book of Haggai, and it's so interesting in the beginning, if I can find it. In the beginning, the Lord says, these people, they say the time has not yet come to rebuild the house of the Lord. Then the word of the Lord came by the hand of Haggai, the prophet. Is it time for you yourselves to dwell in your paneled houses while this house lies in ruins? He says, okay, these people are saying, well, I don't think it's the Lord's time for me yet to work on the house. And so Haggai comes along and says, okay, but did the Lord tell you to build your own house with all those nice panels and everything else? And he says, don't you see how there's this double standard here, that whenever it's for you, you don't need to hear a voice from the Lord. I mean, did the Lord really tell you to buy the house you bought? Did he say, you know what, this is the one for you? Did you hear a voice from the Lord? This is the car you need to drive. This is how. No, you just do those things because you want to. But then when it comes to the Lord's work, suddenly I need to hear a voice from the Lord. I don't know if I'm really supposed to give to that organization. I don't know if I'm really supposed to give to that country over there. So we need instruction from him, direct instruction if we're going to adopt a kid, give to the poor, do this ministry, that ministry. But if it's stuff for ourselves, it's weird how it kind of works itself out. And I don't know, just when he was sharing that, I didn't mean to start with so much conviction, Ryan. But I just see it in my own life. We just make decisions, and then when it comes to spiritual things, we need a word from the Lord. Why not just share with someone because you want to share? Why not just share because the Bible says? Why not adopt a kid because the Bible tells you to? Why not just do these things because they're written, and then hear the voice that may tell you contrary? I agree with you. The last night I left pretty convicted by some things that John Ortberg said, and I've been trying to dwell on those. And that whole thing about the mission, even, like I don't think about that sometimes. Like, I try to think even right now. I was thinking, wow, I didn't even think about my mission for this morning. Like, what is the mission, the real mission right now? And as I started to jot down my thoughts this morning, I go, gosh, I would love it if God did something in this room right now. Similar to the things I read about in Scripture. What's the mission? I would love, really, for the Holy Spirit of God to do something where you walk away and go, that was unmistakably God. Like one of those moments that Elijah had, on that mountaintop where he calls down fire from heaven. And it says everyone walked away going, the Lord, he is God. The Lord, he is God. They knew that was not Elijah. We just saw fire come down from heaven and consume a sacrifice right in front of all of us. Man, isn't that the goal? Is that the mission where I say, God, man, I believe, just like I read in the New Testament, where if fire came out of heaven and landed on these people's heads, and they're speaking different languages, and there just became this unstoppable force called the church, where people couldn't shut them up. They just went out with this boldness. Or in Acts chapter 4, where they prayed, and the ground started shaking, and everyone left the room with a greater boldness. I'm going, man, is that the mission still? Man, do I still believe that can happen, Lord? Because honestly, I came in a little bit lacking that type of faith, going, you know what? I'm okay with the shadow mission. I'll just preach a good sermon and have people go, oh, that was really good. Gave me a lot to chew on. And it's like, no, Lord, I don't want that, God. God, could you? I mean, could we experience something New Testament this morning? Do we still believe in the Bible, man? Just as a kid, I remember just walking out of Sunday school, and sometimes you hear these stories of Daniel in the lion's den, and you in your head, you believe it. You read about Elijah and the fire coming, and you go, man, that could happen. You hear about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and that, in that fiery furnace, and going, yeah, I'm not afraid of anything. And then you get older and more skeptical, and you go to meetings like this where you don't see anything spiritual happen and anything supernatural like that, and so you doubt the next time. And you begin this period of doubt to where pretty soon you're going, man, I'm not even after that mission. I do have this shadow mission. Let me just preach a good sermon and get out of there, versus going, you know what, God, I want to experience you. Like I said last night, I'm tired of what I know I can do in the flesh. I think that's part of why I left the big church, too. I thought, I could do this with my eyes closed in some ways. I know how to draw people into a room. I can preach a sermon. I can make them like it. I can get a good enough band to where they go, wow, that was really cool. Great. I could maybe grow the church from 5,000 to 10,000. Great. I don't want to die with that. It's not exciting to me. I think a lot of things we do in church we could do without the Holy Spirit. I mean, I could get people to show up at a Jehovah's Witness temple. I know how to program something and get people there. And sometimes in church it's like, wow, God showed up. We had thousands of people there. Well, he brought in David Copperfield. That would have happened. You can do that anywhere. That's not God. That's just good marketing. It's just. I don't want that. I just get tired of working because there have been those moments in my life, and I hope you've had them. Those moments in your life where you yourself, you've got the chills. You go, what just happened? That was God. Where you pray for something so specific and you go, God, I want that. And then he does it in a way that's even more specific than that. And it's even scary. There have been times, man, you guys, some of you are going to the Tenderloin today. There have been times, man, I've knocked on doors. They're shared with people. I prayed for people. I remember this one guy, I prayed so specific for him. The next time I saw him, he looked at me, he goes, man, you freak me out. He goes, you freak me out. Everything, let me tell you what happened right after you prayed for me. Let me tell you, this is what happened, and this is what happened. He goes, I didn't get excited about God answering your prayer. He goes, I got scared. I got scared. That is scary stuff. I mean, he listens to you. I go, I told you. He listens to me. He goes, that Bible you gave me? He goes, I slept with it all night. I was shaking holding that Bible because I was so afraid of the way God answers your prayers. See, that's the stuff I'm after, where I pray and I walk away and go, I just experienced God. Times when I just weep and go, God, this is awesome. There's a security. Jim was talking about that security that you get from this Father. There's a security when he answers your prayers like that. And you go, God, that was amazing. I know you love me. I know you're with me. I don't want to live any other way. And so what do I want for this morning? It's like, God, could I have that? Could I have that this morning, Lord? I don't want the shadow mission. I don't want plan B. I I want to say everything that God wants me to say. I want to surrender these lips to him and say, God, you speak words of life. You do it. I was thinking about, again, the mission. Sometimes we don't believe the mission can happen. The mission is change. Like what would I love to see happen is literal change, repentance, like change of lifestyle, where supernatural change. And then I thought, you know what? What's the shadow mission? The shadow mission would be conviction. Where you walk away and go, wow, that was convicting. Man, I feel bad. That was convicting. See, we almost look at that as success in the church. I did for a while, where I'd preach a sermon and people in the congregation would cry. People would shake my hand, go, man, that was so good. I am so convicted by that. And they'd walk away and go, man, I'm kind of sad about that. Yeah, there's a conviction. Look at these people walking away convicted. You guys, but that's not victory. Man, when you look in Scripture, who walked away sad? Who walked away convicted? It was the rich young ruler, right? The rich young ruler, he walked away going, wow, those were really hard words to stomach. And he walked away sad. And that's when Jesus looked at that guy and just goes, oh, it's so hard for the rich to enter the kingdom of heaven. And then the disciples, well, then who can go? He goes, well, with man it's impossible, but with God all things are possible. Then if you read a few verses later, it says that Jesus then runs into a man who was very rich by the name of Zacchaeus. He sees Zacchaeus, says, come down out of that tree. I want to have dinner at your house. He welcomes Jesus in. He goes, come on in, makes a grand announcement and says, hey, if half of everything I own, I'm giving to the poor right now. Right now, I'm loaded and I'm about to give half away. And if I ripped any of you off, I'll give you 4 times whatever I stole from you. And Jesus looks and says, today salvation has come to this house. See the difference between action and conviction? It's not, victory today is not, oh, I hope these guys walk out and they feel so guilty and so convicted. That's not victory. That's failure. That's the shadow mission. Victory is for you to go, man, I could care less, about my stuff. Here, I'll give half of it to the poor anyways. Here, I'll do it right now. I don't care about my stuff. For me, to live is Christ, and to die is gain. That's why I told Lincoln, can you sing that song again? Knowing you, Jesus. So he sang it this morning, getting us thinking, you know what, there's no greater thing. There's no greater thing, like Paul says in Philippians. In Philippians chapter 3, verse 7, he says, whatever gain I had, I counted as loss for the sake of Christ. Indeed, I count everything as loss because of the surpassing worth of knowing Christ Jesus my Lord. For his sake I have suffered the loss of all things and count them as rubbish, in order that I may gain Christ and be found in him, not having a righteousness of my own that comes from the law, but that which comes through faith in Christ, the righteousness that God depends on faith, that I may know him and the power of his resurrection and may share his sufferings, becoming like him in his death, that by any means possible I may attain the resurrection from the dead. Paul says, it doesn't matter what I had, all that stuff, it's just junk. In fact, he goes, it's crap. It's literally crap. Like all of my stuff is crap compared to knowing Christ. Man, the surpassing value. It's like, he goes, I'm not trying to make that stuff look bad. He goes, I look at Christ and there's this surpassing value. Like this is so much better, this righteousness, than my position, my stuff. That is just such garbage. I mean, really, do you look at your position and your possessions as crap? I mean, literally. That's what Paul says. All that fame I had compared to knowing Christ now, because Jesus is such a great treasure, I'd gladly sell all of that with great joy, right? The kingdom of heaven is like the man who's found this treasure in a field, and with great joy, he just sells everything. Go, man, I want that field. I got to have that field. All my other stuff is crap. You can have it. I've got to have that field. And that's what Paul's saying about Jesus. That's this theme of with Jesus is what I'm supposed to talk about. Is, do you believe that? Like, I'm telling you, the greatest times in life are the times when I've prayed to Jesus and I walk away going, wow, you're with me. You just answered me. I spoke to him, and he listens to me. He knows me. He loves me. You can take everything else, because this is eternal. I'm good with that. I'm good with this. So even when stuff comes, you go, man, I don't really care. When I found out a couple years ago that I was going to actually make money by writing at this book, and the publishers, my agent's telling me, I think you're going to make like $1 million. I'm going, what? $1 million? You kidding? It ended up being like 5, but when I just thought it was $1 million, I'm going, I look at my wife, I go, what are we going to do with $1 million? And we just love living simple. We don't care, We want to focus on eternity. We just thought we'd never have money. So when we're going, man, it looks like $1 million is going to come in. And I said, let's just sign it over now to, like a charitable gift fund, a donor advised fund where we can't touch it. Because if we take that money, we're just going to buy a bunch of stuff we don't need. And then we're going to stand before God for all of eternity. I mean, we got to keep focused on eternity, and this stuff might mess us up. So let's sign it over before we can. This was not because I was such a godly man. It's because I'm an ungodly man, and I know my own selfishness. I'll just buy stuff for myself. I go, why'd I buy that? And if I really believe in eternity, let me do this and make that decision now, so it just can't have a hold on me. And when we did it, it was just with great joy, and it was an answer to prayer, because my wife years before had said, man, I love our life. The only thing is I wish we could be generous. I love living simply, but I wish we had a bunch of money we could just give away. And I told her, I go, well, that's not going to be us. That'll be other people. For us, let's just toe the line. Let's just live simply. Let's just love each other, enjoy life, and go on with it. And for God to answer that prayer, man, it's a rush. We go, wow, God, are you kidding me? We can keep our same normal lifestyle and yet still build hospitals in Africa, build schoolhouses, dig wells, care for the poor, reach out to the inner city. It's an amazing life. It's a rush. But I think, again, what's the mission here? The mission is, I would love it if we left with that mindset of, Jesus, you are so beautiful to me, so wonderful to me, and everything else is dung compared to knowing you. We can get messed up in this area. It happens before you realize it, how you lose your love for Jesus. And suddenly it's not about being with him anymore. It's all these other things. I caught myself, I shared with some of you, I caught myself last Easter. Last Easter, I was getting ready to preach at the Hollywood Bowl, and I was so excited. I was excited to speak at the Hollywood Bowl because it was a new crowd to me. And that means I don't need to study. I can use an old message, And so I'm going, oh, cool, I could do Easter, the Hollywood Bowl. And so I just go through my files and I look at all my old Easter messages, those are your best messages. So I'm like, this is cake. I'm just going to grab my best old Easter message, basically the best sermon I've ever preached, and then I can just give it to this whole new crowd, and they're going to think I'm great. The whole deal. And I start reading through these old sermons. And I'm reading things that I wrote like 10, 15 years ago for my Easter sermons, and I'm going, I said that? Man, I was looking at some of the words I said, and I saw, man, I had a boldness back then. Man, I had a boldness when I was younger that I'm going, God, I've lost some of this. I wouldn't say that today. Today I'd be concerned about what people would say back to me if I said that. Today I'd be concerned about what they would tweet about me the moment I made that statement. I've been concerned about the articles, the emails, everything else. I'm concerned about what they think, and I'm going, God, this sucks. This is not who I wanted to be. Man, I remember in those early days where I didn't care. You guys could just all leave. You can all hate me, throw stuff at me. I don't care, because I'm going to say what he wants me to say. You can all leave my church. I don't need anyone in the church. I can have 5 people in my living room, and that's fine. That's the attitude I had because I was a prophet of the Lord. But then over time, what happens? All the criticism starts getting to you. And you start going, I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to deal with that. How can I say this in a better way? How can I say this in a less offensive way? Maybe if I just say it this way or that way, and I'm just going, Lord, what's happening to me? This is not who I want to be. And then what killed me was I read this one sermon. I just got on this tailspin of reading old sermons, and because you just realize, I forget. It's almost like my diary, like this is stuff that I was living out, and I was reading this one. It was the sermon I gave the week that my son was born. I had 3 daughters already, and my son was born that week, and I was describing the story to the congregation, and it was so cool, because my wife and I are getting ready to go to the hospital, and, the thought occurs, should we bring our 10-year-old daughter? This might be cool for her to watch. I mean, it's a lot, but it's such an amazing event to see the birth of a child. She's pretty mature. We're going back and forth, and I'm going, yeah, let's bring her. Maybe this will keep her from messing around. And so we take her, right? And so my wife, man, whom I love dearly, is, pushing this baby, and, and my firstborn daughter is there. And then the doctor looks at my daughter and says, do you want to deliver your little brother? Do you want to be the one that catches him? And she goes, I can do that? And he's like, yeah. And so he puts gloves on her, puts a gown on her, puts goggles on her. And so now I'm watching this going, this is too much. This is, I'm already having the feelings of my first son being born. I got 3 girls. My boy is being born. I'm thinking, we're going to kill things. We're going to hunt. We're going to, you're my man, all of these emotions. And then to see my daughter, my firstborn, tears just streaming down her face as my son's coming out, and she's holding the baby. She's the first one to touch her little brother, and I'm just watching this whole thing, just amazed by it all. And I'm reading this sermon where I tell every detail of the story, and then at the end of the story, I write a couple sentences. I told the congregation, I go, as amazing as that was, it paled in comparison to the times I had with Jesus this week. Man, I had some times with him that were so incredible. I just didn't want to leave, and I kind of forgot all about the birth of my son because this was so good. And as I'm reading this sermon, I'm going, man, I remember that. Man, I remember that week. I remember how amazing the birth was, but I remember having times with Jesus where I just sat there in his presence or was on my face in his presence going, Jesus, this is so good being with you. Man, this is what I'm created for. I can sense your spirit in me. I love being with you. This is better than my wife, my kids, everything. I'm just with you. I'm walking in fellowship with you. You're more real to me than the people in front of me. Jesus, it's all about you. And I'm reading this going, Lord, I don't think I love you like that anymore. Man, do you know how awful those words felt coming out of my mouth? God, I don't love you like I used to. I didn't ever want to say that. God, I got to get back to being with you, to where I love you and I can care less about the world. I remember vacations I would take where it was just God and I. It's like, I'm just going to go up into the mountains and just be alone with him. I just want to get away from all other human beings and just be with him because I love him so much. I just want to be with him. I'm craving him right now. I just want to be with him. Everything else is dung. I don't care. But it's crazy how we can lose that. And what I love, though, was as I'm praying this in concern, the Lord spoke to me or reminded me of Revelation 3:10. You know, if you're charismatic, God spoke to me. If not, this verse came to my head for some reason. It was Revelation 3, when he's talking to the church in Sardis in Revelation 3, and he says, man, I know your deeds. You know, you have a reputation for being alive, but you're dead. But then he makes a statement. He goes, strengthen what remains and is about to die. And that's all I heard, was strengthen what remains and is about to die. Strengthen what remains and is about to die. Man, it was so good for me. It was such a word of encouragement. It wasn't like a God getting on me. He goes, no, just strengthen what remains. I love that because he's like, it remains. It remains. He goes, Francis, I see that in you. Man, I look at you down there and I see my spirit in you, and there's that side of you that remains where you'll just say whatever. That's who you are. Man, that's why I put that spirit in you. I've chosen you. You'll say it. That remains in you. You got to just strengthen it now. And that love that you have for me, it was like God said, Francis, I know you love me more than anyone on the earth. You love me. I know that. You want to be with me more than anyone. Now strengthen what remains and is about to die. I was like, okay, Lord, thank you. Thank you. And man, that's been the words for me this whole year since Easter. It's just been strengthen that back up, Francis. You're my prophet. You say what I need you to say. You just do it. And you just keep loving me. You just keep being with me. I'm with you. I'm with you. You just stay with me. Get back to where you were. Repent. Get back to that first love, back when you were a nobody and just a child of God. Remember that, Francis? Okay, before you were this author, speaker, this, that, whatever. Get back to that. Get back to the old you. Man, I miss that old you. And when I miss that old me, get back to that. And maybe God's saying that to some of you. Or maybe there was a time when, man, you just loved being with Jesus. And there's all sorts of things that have happened. I mean, this screws us up, right? It's just all these interruptions and just, man, it's just all these things coming at you. And God's just saying, you know what? There's a function on that. This is do not disturb. Just keep that on. Just be with me. I just want to be with you. This is everything. Everything. Part of me has so much to say, and part of me is like, I just want you to read the Bible for yourself. Like if there was one thing I could accomplish, if I could get you to get alone with this book, with no teacher, no Bible study leader, no pastor, no one. I want to be careful how I word this because this is a new thought from yesterday. Okay, I don't trust very many people. I don't care if they've got a PhD. I don't care how long they've been pastors. I don't care if reverend is before their name. I just don't trust a lot of people. And as I was thinking about this yesterday, I thought, I'd almost rather people just get alone with this book without any pastor. Because honestly, I don't even trust a lot of things that come out of the pulpit nowadays. And for most of you, it's like when these Jehovah's Witnesses came to my door, and I said, you're telling me you read this book? Tell me, you just look me in the eye and tell me you just read this book one day. You read it cover to cover, maybe a few times. I said, God, just tell me the truth. And then you put this book down and go, I got it. We're not supposed to worship Jesus. Jesus is Michael the archangel. We shouldn't have birthdays. Whatever. I go, you came up with your theology by reading this book? I go, I look me in the eye and tell me that. They're like, well, you can't understand that book unless someone explains it. I go, that's your problem. Someone has to feed your theology for you to believe it. I go, I'm not telling you to even listen to me. I'm saying just read what this book says, because people lie. I'm not calling your leaders a liar. I'm just saying just get alone with this book. I'm begging you. Your eternity depends on it. But then I start thinking, okay, am I fair to them? What about us? How many of us read that book? And okay, so if you were on an island and you read this book over and over again, you'd come to the conclusion going, I know what I got to do. I got to pray a prayer and ask Jesus into my heart. Really? You got that from the Bible? Like where did some of our thinking go? I've been asking people lately, I go, if you had to describe church to me just using this book, what would you say? You can't use any of your experience, and you'd be amazed at the answers. And I'm going, then why are we doing what we're doing? I mean, what would you come up with if you just read this? People are going to lie. For the story in 1 Kings 13 is one of those, or I was looking at it the other day again, where this prophet, this man of God, he's been told by God, don't go to this guy's house. Don't stay here and eat. Just keep going. And so this prophet of God gets invited to stay, and he's like, no, I can't, because God told me I should not stay. I have to keep going. But then the other guy says, well, look, I'm a prophet of God also. He says, you know what? It was said to me by the word of the Lord that you are, I'm a prophet like you are, and the angel spoke to me by the word of the Lord saying, bring him back with you into your house that he may eat bread and drink there. It's almost like if I believe something like, well, God just spoke to me, and then I have someone older and wiser, like a John Ortberg coming up to me and goes, well, Francis, actually, God did tell you to spend the night at the Fairmont. God told me, and then I just look at him like, wow, what do I do? Here's this other man of God who's got years on me, and he talks to me in that Clint Eastwood voice, just, what do you think, Francis? Do you feel like, it's just, I go, all right, okay, man, yeah, because he told me that yesterday. He told you that today? Okay, I'll stay. That's all this guy does. It's like, well, that's another prophet. What am I supposed to do? And then the guy says to him, he goes, I actually lied to you. So now because you listened to me, a lion's going to eat you. And he walks out and a lion eats him. And I'm going, that's so not fair. You got another prophet telling you this lie, and you're going to, and then you flip over a couple pages to 1 Kings 22, and you have Jehoshaphat says to the king of Israel, man, inquire of the Lord. So the king of Israel gathered all the prophets together. He gathers 400 all the prophets he can find, brings them all before him and says, should we go to war? All 400 say, yes, you should go to war. The battle's yours. All the prophets, all the religious leaders. And he says, is there anyone else that we might inquire? He goes, well, there's this one other guy, this guy Micaiah. He goes, but I hate him. That's what he says. I hate him, for he never prophesies good concerning me, but evil. And this one guy, and so they go to Micaiah and go, okay, well, should we go to war? He goes, yeah, go to war. You're going to win. He goes, tell me the truth. He goes, all right, you shouldn't go. You're going to die. And he goes, see, what did I tell you? That's exactly it's like a little kid. What did I tell you? He always says the wrong thing. Let's just go with the 400. But here's the freakiest part about that passage. Micaiah, in verse 19, he says, therefore hear the word of the Lord. He goes, I saw the Lord sitting on his throne, and all the host of heaven standing beside him on his right and on his left. And the Lord said, who will entice Ahab that he may go up and fall at Ramoth Gilead? One said one thing, another said another. Then a spirit came forward, stood before the Lord, saying, I'll entice him. And the Lord said to him, by what means? He says, I'll go out. I'll be a lying spirit in the mouth of all of his prophets. And he says, you are to entice him, and you shall succeed. Go out and do so. Now, therefore, behold, the Lord has put a lying spirit in the mouth of all of your prophets. The Lord has declared disaster for you. How is that fair? God? Okay, what's going on? I mean, you start reading these stories, and it's not even just about, it's not even about the things, the lies that are told us, but there's a side of us where I want lies. I want some people to lie to me. You know, that's why Paul says in 2 Timothy 4:3, he goes, in the last days, people aren't going to put up with sound doctrine. Instead, they're going to go and they're going to accumulate teachers who will tell them what their itching ears want to hear. He goes, in the last days, they don't want to listen to guys like Micaiah. They want to say, no, you tell me it's okay for me to live the lifestyle I'm living. You tell me this is okay, all right? You know, and I got to hear a word from the Lord before I give to anyone. Come on, tell me this. You know that. That's human nature. You're going to go and seek advice from someone who's going to tell you what you want to hear. And Paul's telling Timothy that's going to happen in the last days. And so I'm looking at all of this stuff, and I'm just going, look, you please don't listen to me. Don't just say, oh, well, Francis said that. Forget Francis. Who cares what I say? Get in this book. A lot of you got to where you are because you used your mind and said, let me figure this out. This is the way everyone else is doing, but I think there's I'm saying, open up this book. I'm not saying the fellowship isn't good. I'm saying be careful about what you hear. And I'd almost rather you men just open up the book, read it, study it, know it, because some of the things that maybe are even taught in the church, I go, it could be all true, but have you studied? Have you done it? Have you done what I told those Jehovah's Witnesses to do? Just pick up this book and say, God, tell me the truth, and I'm just going to do it. Surrender to this book. Because when I prayed and I said, Lord, what do I say to these guys? Luke 14. Luke 14 was one of the passages that came to my mind. It's the last one I'll be sharing with you guys. Luke 14, verse 25. It says, great crowds accompanied him. In Luke 14, it says, great crowds were accompanying Jesus. So he had thousands of people following him. Great crowds are accompanying him. And it says he turns to them and says, hey, if any of you guys want to keep following me, if anyone comes to me and doesn't hate his own father, mother, wife, children, brothers, sisters, yeah, even your own life, he cannot be my disciple. Whoever does not bear his own cross and come after me cannot be my disciple. Okay, this is what Jesus would say. He'd come up and he's not a respecter of man. He would just go, hey, that's awesome. You guys showed up to follow me, but I'm going to walk out those doors right now. And you got to be willing to hate your father, mother, wife, kids if you want to follow me. I may be going out there and grabbing a cross, and they're going to take me up to the top of Nob Hill right there, and they're just going to crucify me on that. So if you want to follow me, you got to be willing to do that. You ready? Am I worth it to you? You're ready to give it all up. None of this add Jesus to your life. It's like you follow me. You know, it was explained to me very easily when I was a kid. They said, you know, it's like Jesus is driving, or you're driving the car of your own life, and you see Jesus on the sidewalk. And you go, oh, Jesus, that'd be great to have him. So you pop the trunk, get in. Man, whenever I need you, you mind if I get a flat or whatever, you just fix it for me? You really think he's going to crawl in your trunk? You think if you pop the back door and say, hey, get back there, you'll be here with me. You're with me, you're just behind me. I'm driving. You think it's even a with thing where it's like, no, I'll open up the passenger seat for you, Jesus. Come on, you and me. No, until you hand him the keys. And you go, no, this is it. I'm following you. I'll follow you to death. I don't know what you're leading me to, but I know it's going to be better. I trust you that much. That's what it means to believe, that whosoever believes, it's a matter of trusting him and going, no, you're going to do better with my life than I would. How many kids you want me to have? How many foster kids you want? I don't care. You know, where do you want my money to go? It's your money. What do you want me to do this day? What do you want me to say? Who do you want me to talk to? I'll just do it. You drive, and I'll come with you. Jesus, that's what Jesus would say. And then he goes on, he says, which of you, if you guys wanted to build a tower, which of you does not first sit down and count the cost, whether he has enough to complete it? Otherwise, when he's laid a foundation and is not able to finish, all who see it begin to mock him, saying, this man began to build and wasn't able to finish. He goes, come on, you guys are business guys. How many of you would look at your bank, what you're allowed to take out and everything else? If you're going to build the Fairmont Hotel, aren't you going to make sure you have all the funds for it? You've got your ducks in a row and you're ready to sacrifice all this, you're going to put this up? Or do you just go, well, I got enough for the foundation, let me just get started? He goes, that's stupid. None of you would do that, because everyone would go, man, there's that idiot that built half a building because he didn't think about it. And he goes, that's the same with following me. He goes, look, I'm telling you right now, you might die for this thing. You might lose everything for this thing. So don't go starting halfway and then halfway go, oh, I didn't know it was going to be so hard. He goes, I'm telling you right now from the start, you want to lose your family? Your mom, dad, your brothers, your sister, you ready for them all to hate you? You ready to pick up a cross and follow me? If not, don't bother. You're just going to build this thing halfway. That's a waste of time. Go enjoy life, do your thing. But unless you're willing to go to the cross for me, then don't even get started. And he makes it even clearer. He goes, it's like, and what king? If a king's going out to another king for war, isn't he going to first deliberate whether he is able with 10,000 to meet the one who comes against him with 20,000? And if not, the others are way off, he's going to send a delegation and ask for terms of peace. So then any one of you who does not renounce all that he has cannot be my disciple. Yes, this is not extra credit, okay? This is what he's saying at the beginning. He goes, look, this is what it's about to follow me. He goes, if you're going to war, aren't you going to match up your army and go, we got 10,000, they got 20,000. Hey, go send them a fruitcake. Let's not fight. He goes, you want to jump in this war? He goes, we're going to die. We're going to die. You want to do this with me? He goes, look, I'm going to the cross. You going to join me on that? He goes, think this through. I don't want you to get started, go halfway, and go, it was too hard. I don't want you to jump into this war and then retreat. I'm telling you ahead of time, here's the guideline. It's not just, pray a prayer, and now you get to go to heaven and choose which commands you obey. That's not the way he started this thing. And if that's been told you, I'm sorry. But that's why I'm saying, read this book. Read it. And then after he says that, this is where I go, okay, it took me a while to figure this part out. Right after he says that, then he says, salt is good. What? But if salt has lost its taste, how shall its saltiness be restored? It is of no use either for the soil or for the manure pile. It is thrown away. He who has ears to hear, let him hear. That's how he closes it, and he walks off. He goes, if you get it, you get it. If not, don't worry about it. I'm going, okay, salt. How did you get to salt? Like, I got the building one. I got the war one. But then he goes, salt is good. But if he loses its saltiness, what use is it? Okay, so I just started answering that question. Okay, if you got flavorless salt, he goes, what do you do with salt that has no flavor? He goes, it's not good for anything. He goes, you can't put it in the dirt because it'll ruin the dirt. Dirt's good. Dirt's good stuff. Things grow out of it. He goes, it's not even good to put that flavorless salt on the manure because manure actually does stuff. And the salt, that flavorless salt would actually ruin it. You see what Jesus is saying? He's looking at this crowd, and he goes, look, I don't care if you all look like salt. If you don't have that saltiness, if you don't have that flavor, like, I will die with you. Man, I'm the real thing. I'll build this whole tower. I'll go to war. I'm going to the cross. I don't care. I'll put everything behind me. I just want to be with you. Even if it's being nailed on a cross with you, I want to know the fellowship of your sufferings. He goes, if you don't have that taste, that flavor, he goes, you're of no use to me. He's looking at this crowd going, I don't know what to do with you. You're like flavorless salt. See, this is weird coming from Jesus, because we're so used to this thing. It's like, man, it's so good, just come along. And Jesus wasn't like that. He goes, no, if you're not willing to go the whole way, I don't really need you. You actually might ruin what I'm doing. You're like that flavorless salt. I don't know what to do with you. You throw it on the dirt, you're going to ruin the dirt. If I have a pile of crap here, you would actually ruin my crap. It's like, I could actually use that, but it's like, hey, get off of that. That's better than you. That's what Jesus is saying. He goes, you willing to give everything up and be my disciple? Because that's what I need. I need people to follow me. I need them to show the real picture that this is worth dying for. And the rest of you, because I really can't use. Let me put it this way. I brought a little salt in my pocket. Okay, little grains of salt. If this is real salt, okay, which it is, I got some real salt here. And let's just pretend this is the flavorless salt. Like it's just little white specks. Okay, there's no flavor to it. It's almost like sand. It's just white stuff. Would there be any point in doing this? Can you think of any reason why I would do this? You're thinking, well, you just wasted the good salt. Now you mixed up the good salt with all this other stuff that you kind of ruined that. Is there any point in doing this? I'd say, yeah, there is. So you can walk around going, hey, look how big my pile is. Look how many people are following me. Isn't this awesome? And Jesus is looking at the crowd going, look, I'm not interested in a big pile. Okay, who's with me? Who's willing to pick up their cross and follow me? Who has that type of saltiness? Because I don't want you going halfway with me. I want you completely. Completely. And again, I'm saying read this book for yourself. Read it. Don't let someone just tell you what it means to follow Jesus. Read it. You've got a mind. Read it for yourself. And I think a lot of you will be better off reading it for yourself than just having other people feed you and tell you what's in there. Oh, trust me, it's in there. Trust me, this is what it means. No, you've got the Holy Spirit of God. Say, Father, I want to know the truth about what it means to follow Jesus, and I'm ready to give everything. I just want to be with you. I got to know you. I got to know the power of your resurrection. I got to have the fellowship of your sufferings. And so if everyone hates me, so be it. If I'm like Noah, the only one jumping in the ark, so be it. If I'm like Lot, the only one that needs to run from the city, so be it. If I'm like Jeremiah and I got to preach for 30 years and no one's going to listen to me, that's cool. If I'm like Timothy and it just said everyone's going to go somewhere else and listen to someone else because they don't want to put up with sound doctrine, so be it. I just want to be with you because it's you and me against the world, and I'll take that any day. Man, I hope that's where your heart is. I really do. This isn't a game, man. This isn't just a sermon. I believe with all my heart that at any moment we're going to see God. And at that moment, nothing else is going to matter. It's about, did you really know him? Because God's going to say, well done, good and faithful servant. Or he's going to say, depart from me, I never knew you. I knew some of the buddies you hung out with. I knew that one uncle of yours. I never knew you. Like you never chose to follow me. And I just didn't want to come and give you a sermon and assume that you're all with me, even in knowing Jesus, you know? Because I've enough said. Get in the Word. I just want to pray over you, though. And again, I don't pray to just close out time. I pray because I believe something happens when I pray. I believe it's the most powerful thing I can do. I tell you, I read you the words of Jesus, and then I pray, and I go, I don't know anything to do better than that or more effective than that. And so I want to pray believing, and I pray that you would believe too. Would you bow your heads with me? God, even as I approach you right now, God, I feel like I fail in so many ways. God, I pray they would see through anything I said that was wrong and that they would really hear from you. God, it's supposed to be this joy following you. God, like Zacchaeus jumping out of that tree and go, man, here it is. I don't care about my stuff. Here's half all my money. I have Jesus in my house. Lord, that's how I feel. And so, God, if I communicated anything else, God, because I just sense like this somber mood, and I don't want that. Following you is amazing. God, you're so worth it. It's with great joy that I go, I don't care anymore. I just want you. God, and I want that for these men in this room. God, I know Satan wants to blind them, distract them, tell them they have so much, they've been given so much. Lord, it's all nothing compared to you. It's all dung. Help them to see it. Help them to see the surpassing value of knowing you. Help them to see how beautiful Jesus is. Help them to picture you sitting on a throne in heaven right now. In all of your glory, dwelling in unapproachable light, you spoke the whole world into existence. I mean, this tiny earth, you spoke it also. Help us to see our possessions and our positions as crap. I mean, who cares about what we leave on that tiny earth? Man, to come into your presence where you have 100 million angels bowing down to you, worshiping you. And to hear you say, well done, God. I want to give everything up for that. And the security of knowing that we're going to be with you forever and ever. No more pain, no more tears, no more lies, no more sin, no more death and sickness. All because of what Jesus did on the cross. All because Jesus paid it all. All to him I owe. God, all for Jesus. May we all be about being with him, loving him. Help us to be honest. Help the men who don't really know you to just admit that. Help the men who don't see their positions and stuff as crap to just admit that. Help them to see your beauty so that everything else fades away. Because you are so beautiful. You are so wonderful. And God, you know how I want you to move right now. Power of your Holy Spirit. No shadow mission. It's all or nothing, Lord. Please, Father, by your grace, by your mercy, open our eyes to your beauty. In Jesus' name I pray.